are so diverse.
Here's Darman with his fellow New York voices.
I like you for Christmas. Ooh, please make my wish come true.
So, Darman, to what extent might it also be about the intent of the artist when crafting a Christmas song? Meeting their mortgage payment would be one intent, but a loftier goal maybe, some artistry?
I think it can be both, but it's also easy to sometimes feel like a lot of them are the artist's attempt to create an annual annuity as that song gets played every December. Part of it also gets into the whole side of things where Christmas as a secular, joyful season, family, friends, good cheer, and throw in a little romance perhaps, that's wonderful, but that's very different than the original meaning of Christmas in terms of the birth of Christ and all of the sacred music. And that music tends to be put on the shelf. I love the balance of the two.
Judy Pankhurst, what was your intent when you wrote House on Christmas Street? I mean, it wasn't just like to get a nickel out of me.
The original intent was just to make people happy. I mean, really, that's it. I just want to make music that makes people laugh, have a good time, have fun. I've never gotten rich off my music, so that wasn't even a thought. But I'll be honest with you, immortality, David. I wanted a song that would live on after I'm gone. The only times a lot of people hear Nat King Cole is at Christmas time. So I said to Philip, my husband, I said, if I ever had a hit, I would want it to be this one because it would come back year after year after year long after I've left.
Big ending now from Judy.
On Christmas Street.
Judy Pankhurst, House on Christmas Street, her song embraced by people who do those houses you cruise past, covered in blinking holiday lights. And Darman Meter, New York Voices, each are my friends from our childhoods in Central Maine. Links to their work at marketplace.org. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
To play us out, here's Darman with New York Voices.
ViStar Credit Union and 121 Financial Credit Union, two of Jacksonville's credit unions, are now coming together, all to better serve our members and give back to Jacksonville, the city we call home. Learn more at ViStar121merger.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or BaptistJax.com.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's First Coast Connect, bringing to the community innovation in transportation planning, commuter services, clean fuels, and intelligent transportation systems. More at northfloridatpo.com.
You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Before the start of a new year, consider ending the old one with a donation to this station. Text News 899 to the number 44321, and thanks.
It's the biggest stories of the week. Jacksonville's United Soccer League franchise rolls out its crest and colors. The mayor wins approval for millions to target literacy and homeless priorities. An Inspector General investigation shines a harsh spotlight on operations at the Jacksonville Housing Authority. And costs are rising to restore the historic Laura Street Trio in downtown Jacksonville. Then, Harmony's Fit for a Queen, a cappella group Queen 6, gives us the royal treatment. Give us a call at 549-2937 or send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org to join our conversation. You can also message us on Facebook or Instagram or tag us on X at FCC On Air. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
It's a minute past 9 o'clock. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Voting rights groups are asking the Florida Supreme Court to take up a battle about the constitutionality of a congressional redistricting plan. WJCT News 89.9's Stephen Ponzon has that story.
Attorneys for the group say the state Supreme Court should reject a December 1st ruling by an appeals court that upheld the plan pushed by Governor Ron DeSantis in 2022, which they say diminished minority voting power. At the heart of the issue is the former Congressional District 5, which stretched from Jacksonville west past Tallahassee. The attorneys argue the appeals court decision violated Supreme Court precedent in redistricting cases. Voting rights advocates are urging the Supreme Court to take the issue up quickly ahead of the 2024 elections. Stephen Ponson, WJCT News 89.9.
Downtown Jacksonville is set for a potential housing boost as the Jacksonville Transportation Authority Board yesterday approved developer Gateway Jacks to turn a nearly 1.5-acre parcel next to the Rosa Parks Transit Station on Union Street to become a mixed-use development. It will have 250 housing units. Notably, 25 of the units will be set aside for at least 30 years as affordable housing for households earning near Jacksonville's average median income of $64,000. A 31-year-old former Jacksonville Jaguars financial manager pleaded guilty yesterday to stealing more than $22 million from the NFL franchise through its virtual credit card program. As part of his plea agreement, Amit Patel will have to forfeit property and assets funded with the money he stole. The temperature is now in the mid-50s in Jacksonville. We've got a wet, cloudy, windy day in store through the weekend, actually.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Opinions expressed on the First Coast Week in Review are those of our panelists and do not necessarily reflect the views of WJCT News 89.9.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and you're listening to First Coast Connect. It's Friday, so that means it's time for our First Coast Week in Review. Among our topics, a new pro soccer league reveals its vision for the First Coast. The City Council approves millions in spending on Mayor Donna Deegan's literacy and homeless priorities. A city investigation derails a $60,000 pay raise for the chief of the Jacksonville Housing Authority. And what will become of the Laura Street Trio, should the city be the financial backer? Also later, an a cappella choir fit for a queen joins us ahead of their performance tonight. But first, a look at the week's headlines with my team of local news hounds. I'm joined here in studio by Emily Turner, anchor and reporter with Action News.
Hello, how are you guys doing?
Hi. Good morning.
Hello.
Great to have you. Jasmine Monroe, First Coast News anchor and reporter. Thanks for being here. Hey, Jasmine. Nate Monroe, no relation, Metro columnist
Hey, we're family.
for the Florida Times Union, and Ashley Harding, anchor and reporter at News for Jax.
Hey, it's great to be here. Good morning.
Good to have you. And to our listeners, what stories caught your eye this week? Join our conversation at 549-2937. Email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or tag us on X at FCC On Air. You can also watch our video stream right now on Facebook and the WJCT YouTube page. First topic. Let's start off. Jacksonville's first pro soccer club unveiled its name and its colors and crest this week. A big, splashy announcement. Ashley Harding. It was headlined by two American football stars, Tim Tebow and Fred Taylor. So how significant was having this United Soccer League expansion franchise announcement? The league itself, and then also just what they're going to look like, what they're going to be called.
I think moving forward, it just shows you how our city is progressing and moving forward. We're already an NFL team. We already have that going for us. When people hear Jacksonville Jaguars or Jaguars, they think of our city. This is another way to really highlight how our city is moving in the right direction. And Tim Tebow, come on, he's an international star right here, and people love him. And I think it was very exciting to hear this and to share this with our viewers throughout. So I think this is really a step in the right direction. People have wanted something new from the bold new city of the South for a long time, haven't they?
Emily Turner, this announcement was actually held here at WJCT Studios. The sheriff was here, a lot of bigwigs showing up for the scene. It seems like the city is embracing professional soccer, which is, a new thing for us. How does that fit into the mix that Ashley was talking about in terms of professional sports in Jacksonville?
I mean, I think anything you can do to promote yourself on a bigger stage is important, especially anything that would potentially be downtown. Having spoken to folks at the chamber and done multiple stories about, development in Jacksonville, one of the big things we need is downtown. So if they're going to put a stadium down there, if that's going to be a draw to get people down there, then that's fantastic. I'm traditionally a little bit of a cynic, so we'll see what happens and what it goes. Soccer's not as big here as it is in maybe other parts of the country. And so hopefully we have the fan base to fill the stadium and to make that a success.
It's interesting because they're talking about, Jasmine, a 15,000 seat stadium that they have not located yet or not announced a location for yet, but they do have a big training facility that they've rolled out in St. Johns County, plans for that. They're obviously thinking that there's a strong market here because there is another football or soccer team here, the Armada, which is also planning. It's not a professional team, but it's also planning to have a stadium on the east side.
I think this is a good thing, and the reason that being is, a lot of people. I love my football. I'm a Pittsburgh girl, so I grew up on football. But I think a lot of people are turning towards soccer now. A lot of parents, if you think about it, you're going to soccer games. You're taking your kids to soccer games. For those little youngsters to be able to go to a place and enjoy that, a safe place that, when they think about sports nowadays, people talk about what's sport safe, but concussions are in soccer too as well. But I think this is good. And, comparing this to other cities in Atlanta, this is where everyone goes. Soccer is it. And Jacksonville is at the perfect spot. I feel like even being a newbie here, I feel like it's on the up and up. Even personally at my station, I feel like everyone's excited about something else is coming. Fingers crossed the stadium for the Jaguars too.
It does seem like a sport that once you have a kid, you sort of discover soccer if you haven't previously discovered soccer. Nate, your son's a little too young to be, on the pitch. But what do you think about how this fits in? I mean, this is definitely a private enterprise as opposed to kind of how the Jaguars have, been on the, on at the requesting end of financing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a market for soccer here for a long time. I mean, as long as I've lived here, there's been a kind of, I think there's been a surprisingly decent sized appetite for soccer. And we've seen, the Armada have there was a time when they were playing at the baseball grounds, and that was a lot of fun. And I think a lot of people enjoyed that. And so, hopefully this fills a bit of a void because I do think there's a market for it. So it is exciting.
So one of the strong emphasis when they did the rollout was about this program being not just a men's team, but the women's program being on equal footing. The new club will be the first to feature both men and women's professional soccer and kind of give them equal billing. So at this rollout, our own Will Brown from Jacksonville Today spoke with Amanda Vandervoort. She's the president of the USL Super League and the person in charge of the USL's entire women's pathway. She talked about the confluence of events, including a strong women's national team, the U.S. team, and that driving interest in soccer.
Soccer in this country is going to explode alone from the 2026 Men's World Cup, and then adding the women just creates more visibility for the game. So we have actually submitted our application. U.S. Soccer just in the last week officially submitted our application for the bid along with the Mexican Federation. So hopefully in 2027 we as the United States and Mexico have the opportunity to showcase really what equality looks like.
Jasmine, how big of a deal is it, soccer and young women athletes using that platform to kind of access whether it's education, scholarships, or just, furthering their own athletic ability?
I think it's very important, and she just mentioned it, being inclusive. It's not just a one-sided thing. When you go to these soccer games and seeing these soccer games, little girls, little boys are able to see that they can be in that exact same position. I'm all for women, go women, but as a little girl, you didn't see those things growing up. So to be able to see it, to have a little girl, I just look at viral videos earlier today of little girls doing cartwheels on the soccer field. It's cute, but to be able for her to be able to see, a professional soccer player playing, I think that's excellent. And it's all about, it's 2023, we're going into 2024. If you're not on that bandwagon of being inclusive right now, you are too far behind.
And Ashley, at the rollout, one of the things that they emphasized was not just kind of gender equality, but that they're trying to be inclusive and representative of the whole community. And they, included a rendition of Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is the Black national anthem. So they said that they really are trying to set a standard for representative play.
And that's so important because, as Jasmine said, we're going into 2024. Inclusion is everything. Seeing different people of different backgrounds, ethnicities. People, when they look on the screen, on TV, they want to see themselves. They don't want to just see the status quo that we've seen for decades. And, I'll go ahead and go back to the national women's team. That is a very diverse group of women. And I got to tell you, I'll go ahead and share what my husband said. I'm the football person in the family. I'm the basketball person. If I watch a Jags game or an Orlando Magic game, he said, Ashley, you want to see some athletes, look at these women.
Yeah.
And to hear that and to see little girls, little boys, whoever, looking up and seeing someone who looks like them, I think that's everything. That's exactly what the future needs moving forward.
Is there enough appetite for as many sports as we've got? I mean, is there going to be a saturation point for watching, fan football, fan soccer?
I mean, I think I'm negative Nancy here. At this point, you're kind of limited just based on the number of people in an area. Jacksonville is growing, and we're getting people from other parts of the country who want other sports. That said, it is a heavy, heavy, heavy football town with people who are Georgia fans, Florida State fans. I mean, that was one of the major issues getting the Jags here is there an appetite even for a pro team when you're spending Saturday in one of these football towns? So if you're going to theoretically say we're going to be at our college game on Saturday, at our pro game on Sunday, where does any other sport fit in? From where I sit, I think maybe, that fits in. It just would theoretically be like your secondary or tertiary spectator sport.
Nate, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, Saturdays, first of all, if you're playing soccer, are pretty much taken up by soccer, right?
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of other things going on in town in terms of sports.
There are, and I don't know enough about the economics of how a team like this, works or what sort of attendance they need to see. I mean, I do think that we have, like I said, I mean, I think there's an appetite for something other than the Jaguars as much as people do like the Jaguars. Like, jumbo shrimp games pull really good crowds. Outdraw some MLB teams sometimes. And so, and I think soccer, executed correctly could do the same thing. Now whether that translates to financial success for this organization is something, we'll just have to see.
Fan experience is a big deal. I mean, like you say, the jumbo shrimp, they kind of, it's not that baseball's a sideline, but it's, it's definitely part of the buffet.
One of the things I was going to pop in and say that, as a mom to young kids, where it would be great to have a place where we could go and it would really be tailored to family-friendly events. The Jags can be overwhelming for little guys. I'm not going to trek to Gainesville with a toddler. But if there's, a jumbo shrimp situation or not to say that they need to be the Savannah Bananas, but God bless it, if I could get tickets to that, I'd go. Because if there's something that really tailors to families, I think there's such an appetite for that here and maybe not as much available for us to go and experience and do.
It's interesting because that's one of the things that they talked about was maybe having like a place for young children that you can bring, when you're going to a game so that there's maybe something else to do to, when they need a little extra play place or activity that isn't just sitting and watching.
I was also going to say, if you build it, they will come. I mean, it's not all about just people here in Jacksonville. I'm not from here, so I'm always interested in looking for more to do. When my family comes in town, they're like, what do we do? Where do we go? I know a lot of my family loves soccer. So to have something like that, I mean, I will be able to see more family coming to the city and more friends coming to the city just with something of, I wouldn't say a small idea, but a big idea like this to come to the city. I think the more you build into a city, the more money comes into the city and the more Jacksonville becomes a destination city. You want your place to be a destination city. I think that's the end goal.
Well, when you're talking about money, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is Donna Deegan's spending priorities. But if you want to join the conversation, give us a call at 549-2937. Email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or message us on social media. We're here with our Week in Review Roundtable, several of our favorite local journalists. So let's start with the City Council on Tuesday approving $26 million of Mayor Donna Deegan's priorities. This is money that her task force spent months reviewing, deciding how it was best spent. Big picture, what are her priorities, Nate? What is she choosing to spend on?
Yeah, so I mean, this is basically a potpourri of health initiatives, affordable, some homelessness initiatives, some youth programs. the idea here is to try a lot of different things and see what works and what doesn't, and come back and invest in the things that do, and move on from the things that don't. And so that top line $26 million sounds like a lot, but it's really, it's essentially allocating much smaller amounts to just kind of different programs. And I think the Deegan administration viewed this as really their first chance to make an impression on city government. This is something they were very excited about. Certainly getting this through the council, mostly unchanged. There were a couple of tweaks. I think it was a bit of a political win. It was, her administration and the council have butted heads on some stuff. And so I think this, could maybe be an opportunity for them to kind of turn the page on what was, a little bit of a bumpy road too. So it was a big deal.
She was on the show the other day, and she was talking, Emily, about the fact that this was, got through with this unanimity, which was important. I guess that they hadn't known or perhaps realized until shortly before this vote that because those were reserve funds, that they really needed a supermajority to pass. They can't just pass with a simple council majority. And like Nate said, it's not been a sure thing for this mayor with this council in terms of, having people that want to support her fully or even be seen as supporting her.
Yeah, I mean, she had a rough first 100 days, I think, by all accounts, with some major battles with, Al Ferraro and Randy DeFore and several other issues that she really had to fight with city council and the powers that be and kind of the establishment there. And so this is a big win for her in that regard, a supermajority. It's really hard to turn your nose up at, what by all accounts I would consider, humanitarian aid, right? It's infant mortality, affordable housing. These are all things that, are you going to really say no to that? I mean, they're all great, valiant efforts. And you're right. I mean, even if it were $50 million, that's going to be spent, Nate, quickly, because money goes fast, especially in a town like this, when you're putting it towards something that really that it could, is a black hole in the sense that there's so much there that needs to be done.
And Ashley, when Nate's saying this is an attempt to sort of see what works, what overarching issues is she trying to, quote unquote, solve or address with these smaller allocations of funding?
Well, the issue of housing and homelessness is huge right here in Jacksonville. I think back to, I think it was maybe 3-4 years ago, I was talking to Cindy Funkhauser with Sulzbacher, and she said something that really stood out to me. The housing crisis is resulting in more families becoming homeless. And what she meant by family was at least one adult and at least one child. And, these are working people. These are not people who are not working for whatever reason. And that's been an issue that I feel has really been close to the heart of many people here in Jacksonville. The other one for me that really stood out was the literacy programs, literacy rates, and ways to address that, because, I had the opportunity to MC an event with the Justice Coalition probably about a month ago now, 3 weeks ago, and Mayor Deegan did speak. And, the issue is preventing crime. Well, she gave a statistic. I don't recall what the statistic was, but it alarmed me because she said, if you look at our jail, there is a percentage of inmates who cannot read and write. So a large incentive or facet to addressing crime and preventing it is making sure that people have a future. You cannot have a future if you are illiterate. And she also mentioned that she's going to announce a initiative for literacy come January. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there, because that's a major issue near and far, but it hits us very close to home.
I've got to call Al from Jacksonville. Good morning, Al. Welcome to First Coast Connect.
Good morning. Am I coming through?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Al Barlow. Good hearing from you again.
Yeah, nice to talk to you.
I've been helping homeless people since 2020 in Jacksonville, and I just want to say this. I have some constructive criticisms of the mayor, but I need to say something first. I did support her wholeheartedly, and and everything, and I want to see her do well in her administration. However, I do have a lot of issues with the allocation of funding for homelessness, and I just want to say this: there's a difference between for affordable housing and housing for homeless people. And what's happened is people are conflating the two. We dealt with the differentiation between the two when I participated in the critical quality of life issues study last year. And so what's happened is a lot of people are, and most of the money is focused on affordable housing. You just said in the last segment, there's a new housing complex coming. It's going to be 250 units, but only 25 units are set aside for affordable housing. And that's for people who are having around $64,000 in income, medium income. That has nothing to do with homelessness, okay? These people, some of these people they're sleeping right now outside, 30-degree weather. And by the way, we have between 3,000 and 5,000 homeless people in Jacksonville. The critical quality of life issues study, we got this stat from Changing Homelessness. They said just for 200 people, for every 200 people, it takes $10 million for just about every 200 people to have permanent supportive housing. So $3.6 million is absolutely nothing. So that's my constructive criticism. That is a shotgun blast in a lot of different areas. The mayor knows this because she read the report, that $3.6 million is less than what Mayor Curry gave 2019 to 2020. That was over $5 million. From 2021 to 2020 to 2021 is $55.8 million. And then the last year before she came in, it was about $400,000 less than what she just gave. So my constructive criticism is, while the mayor did give something, she knows that is inadequate. That is not going to solve our chronic homelessness problem at all.
Mr. Barlow, thanks so much for your call. Jasmine, obviously this is a larger problem than these relatively small allocations will solve.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's not easy, for the mayor to do. I think the majority of it, they're saying that it's going to go towards the homelessness. It's a project, and I think that it's just going to take time, and it's not also, falling on the mayor's shoulders, everything. I think that everyone has to do their part in order.
She does seem to have some buy-in from the council, though, right? I mean, this seems to be a priority also of the city council president, Ron Salem.
Well, it's interesting because there's kind of a gamut here. I think you say homelessness, and then there's really a spectrum of that. Are you thinking it's the panhandlers right there off of 295 and Gay Parkway, or are we talking about families that are struggling to make ends meet? And I have an interesting perspective on this, having spent 7 years in San Francisco, where there's a vast problem with homelessness. And it's more than just people who are quote unquote unhoused. There is a fundamental underlying issue in many cases, not all, but in many cases, that has to do with drug addiction and mental health. And you can't solve homelessness without looking those two issues boldly in the face and putting a significant emphasis on those two things while also providing them housing as they work through that. I mean, you cannot do one without the other. Otherwise, it's just, pacification and throwing money at something that's not going to have a lasting effect.
It is a complicated issue. People, Nate, looking at, is it best to treat, if there's people who are have, truly psychosis problems, who are, or really severe drug addiction, how do you manage that? Or is housing the simple solution?
It's complicated, as you said. And, look, I mean, the 3.6 million that the caller was referencing, that's not that doesn't represent all of the money that City Hall is investing in homelessness or, sort of adjacent issues that affect homelessness. I mean, the city is, even providing funding to Jacksonville area legal aid is a thing that helps. It's cheaper to keep people in their homes than it is to help them once they've been kicked out. This is kind of an organizing principle of JAWA. And, the city bumped up the amount of money it is providing in public service grants to nonprofits. And a lot of those nonprofits, deal with homelessness. And so there also is, there are a lot of different levers that the city can pull to try to fix these problems. But it is complicated and it's societal, and all of this is sort of interconnected. So, this is something that's going to be with us for a long time. The other sort of point the caller made that I think is, is a valid sort of criticism, is that the mayor did, this 26 million is kind of a shotgun blast at a lot of different things. And that is a choice. She could have taken 26 million and said, we're going to put this all toward homelessness. She decided to go a different route and say, I want to see if I can touch a lot of different issues. And, I guess time will bear out whether that's a good strategy. But, that's a sort of valid point of disagreement you can have about the 26 million and this kind of transition effort.
We're going to move on, but I wanted to take a call from Curtis on the north side. Good morning, Curtis. Welcome to First Coast Connect.
Good morning, everyone. And I really appreciate the brother before me, Attorney Ballo, comments. But I would call to say I totally agree with the efforts that Mayor Bigley is trying to move forward with and push this city towards the future. I would like to encourage everyone to get behind her, regardless of your disagreement, and move forward, especially with the removal of those monuments. In order for us to move forward to the future, we have to deal with the past. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for your call, Curtis. Appreciate it. It's not one of our topics for today, but Jasmine, it's interesting when we have the mayor on. The issue of the Confederate monuments never fails to surface. It is always something that we're getting multiple calls on, multiple comments.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me because I was trying to figure out exactly what he was talking about. But yeah, I mean, across the board, that's not just Jacksonville. I think that's a discussion that, it's complicated to say because, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. Don't take the, monuments down. You don't recognize what the history is. If you leave them up, you are recognizing what history is. So you're offending someone on both sides. The answer for that, it's well beyond me.
All right, we're going to talk now about the Office of Inspector General investigation. So the Jacksonville Housing Authority has been in the spotlight the last couple of weeks, initially over a pay raise for the authority's chief executive that got the mayor kind of pumped the brakes on it, $60,000, a little bit of an eyebrow-raising amount there. And then since then, some details emerging, at least broad outlines about an investigation into the agency of the Housing Authority. So Emily Turner, what does this inspection, what do we know so far about what this Inspector General might be looking into?
So far, it's limited. I mean, there's yet to come. It's one of those stay tuned kind of situations. But basically, they got funding from the federal government. It was supposed to go to utilities, but as I understand it, Jacksonville Housing Authority did not necessarily specify or do what they were supposed to do. It was up to them to dictate that. And so I think it was 13% only was spent on utilities, and the rest, who knows, which as a taxpayer is concerning because you're earmarking money for a certain thing that you think is going to help, and then you don't actually know where it goes. So where's that accountability factor there, which I think is a huge question.
Ashley, it's interesting to me, and maybe this is, just something everybody kind of understands, but it's interesting that the people in the city government, people at the agency itself, maybe weren't aware that this investigation was happening. The mayor kind of saying well, I didn't realize that was ongoing. It's the way that those investigations happen within a silo and not necessarily broadcast for people who work in city government to know.
It's true. And a lot of times our viewers are wondering, where is the accountability? They ask us, they say, why are we just finding out about this? We ask those questions. I know Jim Piggott asked that, earlier this week, right out in the open. And, we were basically told you just have to wait. And he did not want to answer any questions, really. I understand we are waiting, but people want to know what's happening. That's a fact, day in and day out. And for things to be happening seemingly behind closed doors, it just raises more questions and concerns.
Can I pop in real quick on that? I've done quite a bit of work with the Office of Inspector General with the work I've done with the Emergency Operations Center. And the reason there is some obscurity to this is by design, right? It is technically the Office of Inspector General for the city, but it's independent for a reason because nobody is immune to the questions he's going to ask, the things he's going to look into, whether it's the housing authority or it's the mayor or whoever, and it's kept under wraps because they've got to get these answers. And then when they're ready to release that report, they will release that report. And, how that's rolled out is maybe that's up for question and that's up for debate. But there's a reason that it's kept close to the chest until there's a report and the findings are there. Otherwise, it's a lot of speculation that may be unfounded.
And Jasmine, that's true. I mean, until something is determined to have occurred that is wrong or wrongdoing of some kind, it wouldn't be fair to put out those kind of details.
No, I mean, that's investigation, period. A lot of times we get looked at as journalists as, you're not telling the whole side of the story, or you're not telling. It's oftentimes you can blow the cap on a huge investigation that you're doing because of this little snippet. You're going to get it when we get all the pieces together. You have to make it make sense. It has to be digestible, but also being factual too. So it's better to be right than to be first, is what I say.
And Nate, you've done a fair amount of reporting on the Office of Inspector General itself, which has not been immune from investigations.
Even
and
the Inspector General can be investigated. That's
Yes. But in this particular case, we don't know what's happening. Is there reason to think that, this is an agency like a lot of agencies in the era of shrinking newsrooms that maybe doesn't get the attention that it once did in terms of having, a reporter from your paper there at every single meeting. Now, David Bauerlein does great reporting on the Housing Authority, but he's just one guy. There's a lot of independent authorities. Do you think that this is the kind of thing that we don't really hear about because there isn't a daily attention to these smaller agents or authorities?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that the Housing Authority in particular is kind of an odd bird among the city's independent agencies because so much of what it does is regulated by HUD. And so, I think even a lot of city officials in the past have kind of not messed with the Housing Authority very much for that reason. There's kind of limited sort of control that even the city has over some of these programs. And yeah, it's, these agencies that kind of toil in obscurity, sometimes can go pretty far afield. Now, I don't know if that's what happened here, right? I think what is clear is that the mayor's office doesn't seem sold on Dwayne Alexander remaining the CEO of the Housing Authority for whatever reason. And this happens from time to time in mayoral administrations, right? Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with a mayor having a view on the leadership of an agency and even, preferring to see someone else run it. I think where mayors can get sideways and maybe when this Inspector General report comes out, maybe this will be a chance for a reset. But I think when mayors try to exert pressure on boards to oust CEOs or make personnel decisions, when they try to do that without being upfront that that's what they're doing, that's when they get sideways. I think that's what happened with the last mayor and a couple of agencies. And like that's, if the mayor wants a change in leadership at JHA, like just say it and tell us and explain make the case,
We've got a call, Ken from Brentwood. Good morning, Ken. Welcome to First Coast Connect.
Hi, good morning. How are you today?
Terrific.
Great. I just wanted to give you the perspective from, I hate the term landlord, but I own a duplex in Brentwood, and my dealings with the Housing Authority have been just absolutely disastrous. We do our best to really have a great apartment for a family in need, and we love this neighborhood and we really care, but there's no accountability for the tenants whatsoever. I think it's great that they've been paying their utility bills when they need to and their security deposit and the full rent, but in the end, they give us an inspection report after way before they move out, maybe a month or two before they move out, and we're supposed to sign off and say everything's great, when in fact we have no idea. So our last two tenants left us with a huge mess, and they also left us with bills, utility bills that were not paid, there's just absolutely no accountability. So they've already gotten their voucher.
Yeah, explain what role the Housing Authority has in those dealings.
Well, there's supposed to be an inspection before they move out, and we're supposed to sign off that they're in good standing, but they don't do it. The schedule is not set up so that we can say, okay, they moved out and they left the place clean, there are no damages, and they paid, their final month's rent or whatever that might be remaining, or utility bills. So in this case, I'm trying to turn over an apartment right now where it was an absolute mess, broken windows. There's a roach infestation, which we were not aware of. And had we been aware of, we would have taken care of it. We're very good landlords. We're not we didn't come in from out of town and invest in a place just to make some money. We really like this neighborhood, Brentwood, and we really care about it. And we're doing our best to keep the rent down, which is really hard because of our expenses are going through the roof.
Thank you,
Insurance.
Ken. Yeah, thanks for your call. Ashley, Ken sounds like a good landlord, but there are a lot of difficulties in even low-income housing or HUD housing being able to afford the bill of, maintaining that housing for rent that isn't perhaps at market rate, given how expensive everything is.
Oh my gosh, everything's expensive. And, one of the main things we hear at News for Jax from our viewers is, issues with being able to make the rent. And,
or the quality of the housing.
Or the quality of the housing, exactly. Gosh, that really dominates our headlines, doesn't it?
Our inbox is full of stories like that.
Yeah, every day.
Mold and rats.
I was going to say, the
holes
roach
in the
infestation
floor.
is what he said.
Yeah, we even did a story trying to explain to people exactly what your rights are as renters and, really what the steps are. I'm just amazed at some of the things that people in our community go through. And, this landlord who called us sounds amazing. Frankly, sounds like the landlord I wish I had in college. I'm very serious about that. But, it makes you wonder what's going on here. Why aren't certain things being met? But can it be attributed to our own experiences, expenses, what have you?
Yeah. Well, it's an investigation we're going to keep watching. Let's move on. So the city this week, the city council heard a proposal for yet another redevelopment plan for the historic Laura Street trio downtown. This plan includes 2 additional buildings, which would make the project actually a quintet rather than a trio. But the project developer, Steve Atkins, has been working on and managing this project for a decade now. Buildings are still noticeably vacant. No windows, kind of a bombed out look for that corner, but very historic buildings. So the cost is going up on this, Emily Turner. What's the sense of an appetite in council for footing additional costs and also possibly taking on the role of securing this loan?
I mean, that to me is unusual and is part of the headline, which is that the city is going to say, yeah, we're good for the $22 million if the developer defaults on that, where we've seen historically post-pandemic, as the cost of construction has gone up, that yes, we'll give you more of an incentive. Like, for example, the massive development next to Channel 4 and the school board building, they just bumped up their incentives, but they didn't get, here's $22 million in that. So that's the unusual part here that I think is raising eyebrows with council. How that ultimately will play out, I don't know. But the other thing that's interesting about this project is the Downtown Investment Authority didn't make a recommendation, where usually they've got an opinion on everything and instead pass it off to council and we're like, you guys decide. At least that's my perception of it. And I think that's really interesting. It is very different. And does the city, the question here is, does the city want to get into the business of securing loans? Because if you do it once, everybody's going to want to do that.
Right. And if they could end up owning those buildings, right? Does the city really want that, Nate, after 10 years of waiting for a project to get done?
Candidly, I do think there are people in city government that would be happy for the city to take control of those buildings. I think, as you referenced, I mean, the trio has kind of a long history with Steve Atkins, and he's been, sort of managing this project for a long time and has gone back and forth on different development deals over time. It is a lot of money. I mean, I kind of view, in some ways, I view the mechanics of this as kind of a distinction without a difference. I mean, the city is so deeply invested in private development in downtown. This would not be the only one. Like, this is the era we live in. I mean, we're giving millions of dollars to developers to do things in downtown, like, fairly regularly. And we're talking about $1 billion stadium renovation too. I mean, this is just like a responsibility that City Hall has given itself. And, if they don't do the trio deal, they're going to do some other giant development deal. Like, this is just the kind of thing that they're considering all the time.
Does anybody track the incentives? I mean, when you look at, this is money that they don't have to pay in taxes. And so, we have all this great redeveloped property downtown. But the city doesn't collect money and the value of those properties if they've given all these incentives up front. Has anybody ever tracked the overall calculus there of what the city could or could be collecting if it wasn't giving out those incentives?
It's interesting you say that. There's a folder in my inbox labeled downtown development because it's kind of been on my radar to do for some time. If I could get a call back from Lori Boyer.
You can ask right now.
Yeah, right.
Yes, there you go.
Shockingly, have not been able to hear back from her. But I interviewed Mayor Buckhorn, a former mayor of Tampa, who was responsible for developing quite a bit of downtown Tampa into what it is, and talked to him about what we lack. And there's just so much there. Downtown is like this never-ending conundrum. Born and raised here. I worked here like 12 years ago at Channel 4. I mean, even then it was a problem where Mayor Payton was literally, it's hard to remember, but I think the specifics where he was paying parking for companies to stay downtown and not evacuate to the JTB corridor. It's this never-ending thing where for as much money as we put in, are we really seeing the payoff here with its, whether it be tax incentives, a $22 million loan, paying for your parking, whatever. And downtown is very different than it used to be. Is it as different as it could be for as much money as we're giving these companies? You know, that's a question to be answered by someone other than me.
Yeah, Ashley, I mean, the former mayor did promise that downtown would be transformed by the end of his term, and it doesn't look very different. There's
No.
a few buildings that have been removed.
You know, we hear this from viewers all the time, and many of them are people who were born and raised here and chose to raise their families here. They say they're ready to see something happen with downtown. You know, I hear this all the time. You cannot have a thriving city without a thriving downtown. You have to draw people here. You know, we even have this joke about we've seen all these renderings. We've seen lots of renderings. You guys know what I'm talking about. We've seen lots of renderings.
You have to put a VR headset on to
Yes.
be downtown and it be something. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, where's the final product? And it just seems to be a never-ending conversation. I do believe that our citizens are ready to see that transformation. They've been wanting to. And I just feel like there has been such a resistance, it seems. I don't even know if that's even the correct word, but there has been a hurdle to make these things happen.
There's a lot of stakeholders there. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
That's true.
I was going to mention, I worked in Cleveland for 7 years. So, when LeBron left, the city just went dead downtown. I mean, nothing. What they started to do was they started building those apartments. They started, telling people, giving people the deals, the discounts. The families actually started moving to downtown Cleveland. So I think, that if you build it, they will come type situation, but you have to have something. The waterfront, build up the waterfront activities for families. When you do those things, it builds up you said the renderings. It's funny, I'm only about 5 months old here, and that's all I hear is, here's a rendering for this, and here's a rendering for that. So it does make sense, but I like comparing this city to Cleveland. Cleveland has it. Cavs won the championships. I mean, the championship, maybe if the Jags win the Super Bowl, it comes then, but it's definitely something has to happen in order for people to stay here.
Nate, if so much of the part of a downtown in our downtown is the result of incentives driven development and city-owned property and city, as Emily said, kind of paying the bills to keep people here. Is it kind of become like a Potemkin Village? Is it like real downtown? Is it a real downtown if so much of it is subsidized and underwritten by taxpayers?
And I could rant about downtown this entire hour, so I'm going to have to keep this focused. I mean, it would be if the stuff we subsidized actually came to fruition. I mean, for all the development deals that have happened, in the time that I've been here and all the renderings that we've seen, I mean, the reality is this stuff more often than not just never materializes. And a lot of the stuff, on the table now is stuff that's not going to materialize for years into the future. We're looking at timelines for, 2026, 27, 28 is when some of these, parks and pocket parks and different developments are saying that they'll be open. I mean, that's years in the future, and that's years of the same downtown that we have now. And so, we could only be so lucky to have this debate about whether, whether we have a real downtown because we're subsidizing everything. I mean, as it stands right now, we're subsidizing stuff and don't have a lot to show for it. So that just sounds like a good problem to
The
have.
fountain is almost done, right?
Friendship Fountain?
It's past due. It's past
know.
due.
Yeah, it's long past due.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things too that we're missing out on. I mean, if you want to talk about losses, right? Okay, maybe we're missing out on taxpayer dollars, or maybe we're missing out on tax income. But there's another kind of unquantified loss while downtown, is still kind of spinning, and that's the economic incentives of bringing people here. I sat down with Andre Wallace a couple of years ago, and I said, what is the biggest problem or the biggest hurdle when you're trying to get companies to come to Jacksonville? And it's downtown, because people don't want to relocate. They're used to cities. There's a downtown. There's a kind of a metropolitan center, which Jacksonville has many metropolitan centers in San Marco, the beaches, Avondale, whatever, but not necessarily a hub. And so there's not necessarily a way to quantify how many companies have chosen not to locate here because of this thing that we just can't get off the ground.
Well,
Those are good questions.
I actually think a challenge is that we do have a centralized business district. It's called the town center.
Yeah.
And that gravitational
That's
pull.
downtown. I thought that was downtown when I moved here.
That actually
how busy it is.
Yeah, that actually is a place where people want to live. It's where people want to work. And it's where there's that's where a lot of the growth in the city's happening, and that kind of gravitational pull makes it very difficult to incentivize people to care about old traditional downtown. That I really think that dynamic in the city makes it very difficult.
We missed that boat because it was the early to mid 2000s, like 2007, 2009, that there was kind of that urban revitalization movement where people were moving back downtown. And we missed that trend and are still now trying to play catch up, I think, on that.
And you also have to make it desirable for the youth. Like college students is what's thriving in Cleveland too as well. You have Cleveland State right downtown. Once you have kids coming downtown, they stay there. Like I have friends who still live downtown. They're in their 30s, their late 30s. And they don't have any plans on moving because it's not bad to live down there. It's safe. They added more police too as well.
We're going to have to leave it there, and I overdid it, so we're going to have to kill our lightning round. But I do want to remind our listeners that we are in
Congaree and Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com.
Wayne Hogan of the Terrell Hogan Personal Injury and Wrongful Death Law Firm. Serious injury cases are complex, and civil trial attorneys present the evidence juries need to see and hear. More at waynehogan.law.
Hunter Biden turns up on the Hill and blasts Republicans for turning down the opportunity for him to testify in public.
What are they afraid of?
House Speaker Johnson claims the White House has stonewalled requests for more information, so the impeachment inquiry will move ahead.
We have no choice. We have to take the next step.
And you're a mean one, Mr. Smith. In a pre-Christmas court filing, Trump's attorneys compare special counsel to the Grinch. Next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. British a cappella ensemble, the Queen's Six, are giving a free performance tonight at St. Paul's by the Sea Episcopal Church. The concert is part of the Beaches Fine Art Series, and it will begin at 7:30 p.m. tonight. An art exhibit and reception follow the show, but I'm joined now by Simon Whiteley.
Hi.
Hi, and Thomas Lilburn of Queen's Six. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having us. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So you are based out of England.
That's right.
And let me get clear. I mean, just you guys live where?
We live in Windsor Castle.
It's pretty surreal, but
Yeah.
it is also true, yes.
What's that like?
I mean, it's amazing. It's a huge privilege to live in a place like that, and it's one of those things where the novelty just never quite wears off. You have to walk past a policeman with a gun to get into the place you live. It feels very safe and secure, but at the same time, there are a lot of tourists. A lot of people come in to visit the castle as well. So yeah, it's really weird because you live inside a tourist attraction.
It's always wonderful to bring new family members or friends to the castle because it just reminds you just how special it is, just how unique a place we live in.
But it's not the kind of place you put like a Kiss poster on the wall or something, right? It's like I would guess a little bit.
Well, within your own house, you can do what you want to an extent, but there are certain rules and regulations. But they're very good at letting us have our own freedom as well.
So let's talk about the historical significance of the choir and where you perform.
So yes, so the Queen Six is made up of some of the members of the St George's Chapel Choir. So within Windsor Castle there is a chapel called St George's Chapel, and the chapel has its own home choir, the St George's Chapel Choir, and that's made up of a number of choristers, around between 15 and 20 choristers, and 12 adult singers as well, and the adult singers are called lay clerks. So the Queen Six make up part of the lay clerks of the St George's Chapel Choir. With the St George's Chapel Choir, we've sung for a number of very big royal events. We sang for the committal service for Her Majesty the Queen last year. 2 years ago, Tom and I were two of the 4 people who were lucky enough to sing at the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip's funeral. I don't know if you guys saw that service, but it was very, very pared back event because it was during COVID. There were only, I think, 50 people allowed in the chapel for that service. So we were hugely honoured to be there for that. And then also back in 2018 with the St George's Choir, we sang for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding as well.
And so explain to us what the name Queen Six signifies.
So the Queen Six is named after Queen Elizabeth I, I believe that's right. Simon's one of the founding members of the group, so he'll know slightly better than me. But yeah, and then it is what it says that there are 6 of us, and we sing a cappella music. It's kind of a bit different from what we do in the stalls. When we sing in the chapel day to day, we'll be wearing cassocks. We'll sing solemn religious music. It's very beautiful. But the Queen Six is a chance for us to let our hair down a bit, explore not just classical music, but more modern music, jazz a cappella arrangements, pop a cappella arrangements, and use our voices differently and explore harmonies that we simply wouldn't get on a day-to-day basis.
And we're going to hear a little of your music in a minute, but both of you guys have really musical voices just even in speaking. How did you come to this kind of level of performance?
So I think most people who do what we do, well, many people who do what we do, started singing at a very young age, whether that be in a local cathedral choir or a local church choir. So I personally started singing when I was about 7 years old, and sang in a cathedral choir until I was about 12, and then sang in school choirs. And I took a gap year and sang in a cathedral and sang at university, and I've just been singing for a long time, more than 30 years.
I'm almost exactly the same. It's been something I've done. I joined a church choir at 7 years old, and I've been singing ever since, really.
And Thomas, just briefly, before we hear some, tell us how would you describe the music in terms of the sense that it brings about, the emotion that it evokes?
Well, it depends on the individual piece. The programs that we sing, I think we try and convey a range, don't we? We often start singing much older music, and it will be solemn. It will be beautiful. Often quite haunting. Some of the earlier music we sing, and then moving through the program, we tend to lighten the tone more and more. And sometimes you get audiences clapping and singing along by the end. We sang to some children yesterday who were singing along with us to Last Christmas at the end of the program, which was great. It's very hard to characterize a Queen Six concert in one word, because what we try and bring is variety.
Well, we look so much forward to hearing from you. We're going to exit with some of your music, I should say. But thank you so much for being here, Simon Whiteley, Thomas Liburn of the Queen Six. Your show tonight is at the Beaches Episcopal. To our listeners, if you missed anything, check out our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock. And don't forget to join us Saturday afternoons at 4 p.m. for What's Health Got to Do with It, when neurologist Dr. Joe explores how holographic models and 3D printers increase surgical precision. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Yeah, it's you. Oh, the lights are shining. Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's First Coast Connect, bringing to the community innovation in transportation planning, commuter services, clean fuels, and intelligent transportation systems. More at northfloridatpo.com.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. ViStar Credit Union and 121 Financial Credit Union, two of Jacksonville's credit unions, are now coming together, all to better serve our members and give back to Jacksonville, the city